Cheops Pyramid, Khufu Pyramid or Great Pyramid, today Egypt's capital of Cairo, which is part of the Giza's surrounding the ancient city of Giza tomb in the three monumental pyramid is the oldest and largest. This monumental complex, which is believed to have been built between 2551–2560 BC, is one of the seven wonders of the world. It is the only work that has survived to the present day in seven wonders. It is the one that has survived until today. It is believed that this pyramid was built as a monumental tomb in the name of the Egyptian pharaoh Khufu, and it is believed that its construction took about 20 years. Until the beginning of the 20th century, that is, it was considered the largest artificial, man-made, structure in the world in terms of volume and mass for 3,800 years, and the height record could not be broken for 4,000 years. Note 1. The original shape of the Great Pyramid was covered with stone plates. Today, this coating layer does not exist. There are various assumptions about the Great Pyramid and its construction or construction technique today. Spiral made according to one of the assumptions about the construction technique: stone blocks removed from a ramp were stacked on top of each other. The ramp was covered in mud, watered, and the stone blocks could be pushed. According to another assumption, stone blocks were removed with giant levers. 3 rooms could be identified inside the Great Pyramid. The room at the bottom of the building is probably an unfinished room created by carving the foundation rock on which the pyramid was built. Rooms 2, later called King Room and Queen Room, are located at the top of the pyramidal structure. The Great Pyramid is actually from the 2 temples, a path connecting these 2 temples, the mastaba around the pyramid. It is part of a complex of structures consisting of various small tombs and pyramids called. This stonework, which is believed to have remained from the old imperial period of Egypt, has been able to resist the corrosive effects of natural conditions for thousands of years and continues to exist as a giant work that has not been fully understood but whose mysteries have been revealed one by one. Construction of entrance of the pyramid. According to many Egyptologists, the Great Pyramid was built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu from the 4th dynasty, and for some, it should have been built around 14 to 20 years 3 and was completed in about 2551 BC 4. Some think that the architect is Hemen or Hemiunu, the vizier of Khufu. 5. The Great Pyramid or Cheops Pyramid is a 138 meters high square-based pyramid made of chipped stone. The original height of this pyramid is thought to be 280 Egyptian cubits, that is 146.478 meters. However, due to the erosion and the absence of the hill, its height today is 138.75 meters. Each of the floor edges is 230.37 meters. 440 cubit in length. Note 2. According to the calculations, the mass of the pyramid weighs 5.9 million tons and its volume is 2.500.000 cubic meters. 6. Some think that the construction took 20 years based on these values and assuming that 800 tons of stones can be placed every day. The first exact measurements of the pyramid were made in 1880 to 1882 by Sir Flinders Petrie and published the measurements in his book Pyramids and Temples of Giza. 7. The clearance between the northeast stones is 0.5 millimeters. It was determined as 8. It appears that the 4 sides of the base of the pyramid are equal to each other, if the 58 mm difference is ignored. Note 3. The base is horizontal and almost flat. The difference between the lowest and highest points of the base does not exceed 21 mm. 9. If the edges of the square base are ignored for 4 angular minutes, the actual north is taken as the basis of true north instead of magnetic north. Aligned to 4 main directions 10, 11, and ignoring 12 angular seconds, the base is a square without error. 12. According to Petrie's measurements and subsequent work, the original pyramid 280 cubit and it was 440 cubits long on each side. These ratios pi2 are equal. This 22/7, i.e. 0.05% difference is ignored if the number pi corresponds. According to some Egyptologists, this is not a coincidence, but a purposefully designed rate. 13. Werner writes on the subject, although the ancient Egyptians did not determine the number pi precisely, it seems that they used it in practice. 14. Petrie, the expert who made the first precise measurements on the pyramids, concluded, the mathematical relationships and circular proportions of the pyramid's surfaces are so systematically inexplicable that we have to admit that they were foreseen in the project, that is, in the design of the builders. 15. Petrie wrote in his book From Then On, from this we conclude that they knew the diameter of the circle, which is the ratio of the division to 22/7. 16. Ancient Egyptians, who used sect as the slope unit on inclined surfaces, once again stated that they knew these proportions by applying these ratios on all four outer surfaces of the pyramid with inclinations of 51.843 degrees or 51 degrees 50 minutes 34 seconds. 17. Materials. Covering entrance of the pyramid from close-up. The Great Pyramid was built on a bedrock. The structure consists of 2.3 million limestone stone blocks. Most of these stone blocks must have been brought from a nearby quarry, and the Tura limestone used in the pavement must have been carried from the Nile River. The granite stones of the King Room, which is the largest stones used in the pyramid, were brought from Aswan, which is more than 500 miles from the region, and their weight varies between 25 tons and 85 tons. Traditionally, the ancient Egyptians used to break the stone blocks from the rock using hammer and wedge methods. When the number of wedges stuck in the rock increased, the stone block would be detached from the cracked rock. Thus, the stone blocks that were cut were transported from the Nile River by ships. 18. The mass of each of the 3 million rocks used in the construction of Cheops weighs 2.5 tons. It is believed that hundreds of people are working continuously for each of the rocks to be carried up. Copper and stone tools were used in the construction of the stairs, and the rocks of Kepos were carried by a ramp. A stone used in the coating of the pyramid. While the construction of the pyramid was completed, the exterior of the building was obliquely sculpted and covered with extremely well-polished white limestone paving stones. These were carefully cut and placed to give the required slope to the surfaces of the building, 5.5 palm, with the unit of sesedit indicating the slope size in ancient Egypt. The original form of the building was not like today. A large earthquake that occurred in 1300 AD displaced a certain part of the paving stones, and the fallen stones were carried by Bahri Sultan and Nasir ad-Din al-Hassan in 1356 and used in the construction of castles and mosques near Cairo. Today, the stones of the Great Pyramid used in these structures are still visible. In addition, according to reports of explorers who came to the region in later periods, in the subsequent collapses, large stones were broken from the pyramid, and they fell to the bottom of the pyramid, forming a pile of rubble. These rubble was later removed and thrown away during the excavations in order to clean the archaeological site. Paving stones on the floor of the pyramid. However, some of the paving stones in the proximal parts of the pyramid have survived to the present day, are still visible, and prove centuries-old rumors about the delicate craftsmanship and mastery shown in the construction of the pyramid. Petrie found that after the precise work, the inner part of the pyramid and the covering were arranged according to different directions. The difference was 193 centimeters. Plus or minus 25 centimeters. Petrie then concluded that after the construction of the interior of the building was completed, the ancient Egyptians realized that they had made a mistake in guiding the building to the north, and that they might have tried to close these errors with the new steering arrangement in the covering section. 19. Assumptions about the construction. Many alternative assumptions have been made about the construction techniques of the Great Pyramid that contradict one another. 20. For example, David Ovitz suggests that the stone blocks were not moved from a distant quarry, they were a kind of solidified limestone blocks produced at the site, which is an unpopular claim by other Egyptologists. The vast majority think that these stones were obtained from a quarry, moved and used in the building by lifting or rolling. Ancient Greeks believed that slaves were used in the construction of the pyramid, while Egyptologists acknowledged that slaves were also used in construction, but thought that tens of thousands of skilled workers must have worked in construction. The cemetery that should belong to these workers was discovered in 1990 by archaeologist Zahi Hawass and archaeologist Mark Lenner. The construction of the pyramid, depicted by Herodotus' account according to Werner, the construction team was organized in a hierarchical way. It consisted of two groups of 100,000 people, and each group consisted of 20,000 people called ZAA or file, which were divided into smaller groups according to the skill level of the workers. 21. One of the mysteries of the pyramid on the subject of building is how the construction was planned. According to the opinion of John Romer, the ancient Egyptians used the same method they had used in this structure before and later in other structures. They were drawing the plan or parts of the master plan on the ground before using it. John Romer has devoted part of his book to this topic in itself. In this section, he tried to reveal the physical evidence of the existence of such a plan. 22. It is not yet understood how stone blocks are placed. Stone blocks from a spiral ramp made according to an assumption were placed on top of each other. The ramp was covered with mud, watered, and the stone blocks could be pushed. According to another assumption, stone blocks were removed with giant levers. According to the historian Herodotus, a ramp of 925 meters length and 19 meters width was built to raise the heavy granite blocks to the upper parts of the pyramid. Internal spiral ramp hypothesis on the construction of the giant pyramids of Egypt, whose mystery has been explored for many years. In 2006, French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin announced that he unraveled the secret of the Great Pyramid of Egypt in Egypt by introducing a new hypothesis. Pierre determined that the rocks used in the construction of the pyramid located near the city of Giza were placed with the help of spiral ramp-shaped stairs built inside the pyramid. Scientists have suggested in their previous theses that the stairs or piers used for the transportation of stones were built from the outside. French architect Houdin said that the part of Cheops, the construction of which was completed 4,500 years ago, up to 42 meters high, was built using an external staircase, and the second part up to 137 meters was built from inside. The pouring hypothesis on the target. It is the hypothesis that stone blocks forming the pyramids do not move from one place but by freezing the mixture poured into the molds where they become stones. The mixture consists of limestone, water, sodium carbonate, soda, clay. This mixture is put into the mold and freezes into a stone block. Finding this mixture, Dr. Davidovits made the 12-ton block by trying the mixture. It is thought that the rocks weighing tons are always made by cutting because they are stones. However, according to this hypothesis, the rocks were not formed by cutting them from one place, but by molding where they were. 23. The interior of the building entry, ascent and ascent vents. Although it is possible to go down to the landing incline, it is generally prohibited to visitors. In recent years, the visit to the pyramid has been limited to 100 tourist groups a day. Taking a photo in the pyramid is now forbidden by a decision taken by Zahi Hawass, the General Secretary of the Supreme Council of Egypt Antiquities. Cross-section of the Cheops pyramid and distribution of the elements in its internal structure. 1. Introduction. 2. The tunnel opened by the men of Al-Mamun. 3. Granite stopper blocks. 4. Landing hazard. 5. Underground room. 6. Exit trouble. 7. 2 ducts, called Queen Room, and ventilation ducts, one made for the Star of Sirius. 8. Horizontal holiness. 9. Great Gallery. 10. King Room and 2 channels called ventilation ducts made for Orion S Zeta Orionis, Alnitak, and Draco S Alpha Star. 11. Room that passes to the King Room antechamber. 12. Service or escape tunnel after the original input. 26 degrees 31 minutes 23 seconds ligand in at an angle 3 feet 11 inches feet high and 3 feet 5 inches wide, is located in a corridor called the landing vestibule. 345 feet post from this corridor is flattened, and 29 another corridor that progresses along the foot and descends into the room below begins, but this corridor gives the impression that it is incomplete. He thought that this room was chosen as the first burial place of, and that Khufu might have preferred to be buried higher by changing the decision. 24. Egyptologist Bob Breyer thinks that this room might have been prepared for possible premature death of Khufu. However, since the pharaoh did not die, the preparation of a second room, Queen Room, was started 5 years later, according to Breyer. But for some reason this room was not completed. After about 15 years, the last room in the center of the pyramid, known as the King Room, was built. 25. Tunnel opened by Al Mamoun. Tunnel opened by Al Mamoun. Tunnel opened by Al Mamoun. A view from the landing bay. There is a square opening in the ceiling section somewhere 33 from the entrance somewhere in the descent delizy. This is the beginning of the ascension delizy and was originally covered with a stone slab. This stone plate, which was displaced by the men of Al Mamoun, fell to the ground of the landing delizy. The men of Al Mamoun then had to turn left. Ascending D hull, length 129, is the same width and height as the landing D hull and shows a slope at the same angle. The end of the exit delizy was closed with 3 large granite blocks, length 5 each. These granite stopper blocks, which descend at an incredible speed when released, are thought to have been in the Great Gallery, before they were released. At the beginning of the Grand Gallery, there is a space carved into the wall on the right, which is closed today. This is the beginning of a vertical chimney tunnel, escape tunnel, which meets the landing delizy and follows an irregular path compared to the pyramid architecture. Its roughness and confidentiality suggest what workers have done to escape in an emergency. At the beginning of the Great Gallery there is also a horizontal corridor that opens into a room called the Queen Room. This is high for most of the length of the corridor, 3 feet 8 inches, and after the step near the Queen Room, the height of the corridor becomes 5 feet 8 inches. On the left wall of this corridor called horizontal delis, 2 metal pipes descending downwards with a slope at a certain angle are seen. These are Japanese archaeologists who use cosmic rays to reveal X-rays in the lower chamber, and investigate X-ray activity in the pyramid. It was added by. Japanese archaeologists have found 2 interesting quirks in these secluded rooms. But when they went deeper to examine these oddities, they came across rooms filled with desert sand. It seems that the stone blocks here could not show the necessary durability for an unknown reason and left their place in the desert sands. Queen Room. Niche wall of the Queen Room. The Queen Room is located in the middle of the north and south surfaces, 18 feet 10 inches from north to south, 17 feet 2 inches from east to west, and has a pointed roof top, 20 feet 5 inches. There is a niche on the east end of the room with a statue of Khufu. However, there is no trace of a statue found here at the time. Its original depth, 3 feet 5 inches, has been disturbed and increased in depth by digging by treasure hunters. There are 2 channels called ventilation ducts on the north and south walls of the Queen Room. These channels, which are made different from the channels in the King's Room, go some horizontal, 6 before they fold up. The horizontal route of these channels was found in 1872 by the English engineer Wayneman Dixon Excavation, who believed that channels should be in this room as in the King Room. Although Wayneman Dixon is right, it has been observed that the canals do not extend to the outer surfaces of the pyramid. So, someone the purpose of opening these channels made for the Star of Sirius is unknown. Dixon found a black sphere made of dioriate stone on one end of one of these channels, and a bronze instrument for which it was unknown. Both finds are now in the British Museum. The ventilation ducts in the Queen Room were discovered in 1992 by German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink using a crawler robot called UPO-2. He discovered that one of the Gantenbrink channels ended with 2 worn copper handles made of limestone doors. However, Zahi Hawass banned Gantenbrink from continuing his work in Egypt because of a press release. A few years later, thanks to a robot similar to the Gantenbrink produced by the National Geographic Society, it opened a small hole in the south gate, but only a larger gate was found behind it. 26. The other channel, North Channel, which is more difficult to advance and work due to its curved end, ends with a gate. 27. Grand Gallery. A view from the Grand Gallery. The Grand Gallery, height 28, length 153, follows the exit delizy. It is 6 feet 9 inches wide at the beginning, 7 feet 6 inches wide at the next, and only 3 feet 5 inches wide at the top. The roof stones were placed at a right angle to the walls. At the upper end of the Great Gallery, there is an opening on the right near the roof, opening to a short tunnel. This provides access to the lowest one from the chamber's end. Relieving chambers above the King's Room. These chambers were discovered by Howard Weiss and J.S. Paring, who in 1837 to 1938 bought the tunnels upward using small explosives, low gunpowder. There is a staircase on the ramp floor of the Grand Gallery. On the gallery walls, 27 on the right and 27 on the left, there are 54 slots slot which are made horizontally and vertically and whose purpose is not known. At the top of the Great Gallery is a staircase leading to a 3 feet 4 inches horizontal corridor. The slots in this corridor suggest that granite gates were previously found. The granite pieces found by Petrie in the landing ditch should probably have fallen from these lost doors. King Room. A view from the King's Room. The original King Room measures 10 × 20 × 11.18 cubit, i.e. approximately 5.24 meters x 10.48 meters x 5.86 meters 28 or 5.23 meters x 10.47 meters x 5.84 meters 29 east to west 34 feet 4 inches north to south 17.2, square-shaped. Some are not random, these rates the ratio gold phi is thought to be determined accordingly. The number phi is observed in other dimensions of the pyramid. 30 is in the ratio of the measurements if seen. Petrie only relied on symbolic reasons. 31. However, Egypt's Petrie King's Chamber of the geometry confirms that a masterpiece. The ratio of the circumference of the room's length of 1 pi toit is equal to pi ratio. The pyramid itself is built according to the same proportions. 31, 32, 33. It has a flat ceiling with a canal entrance, called the ventilation duct, on the King's Room. A ventilator is placed at the entrance of the ventilation duct to provide ventilation today. The purpose of making such channels in the pyramid is unknown, apparently made for stars, they are aligned according to the stars. Regardless of what purpose they are made, it is seen that these channels do not contribute to the ventilation of the pyramid. Scheme of the chambers on the King Room. The King Room was completely carved from granite. The stone blocks are so subtly and properly cut that it is not possible to insert a fine piece of paper between them. There are 5 chambers relieving chambers on the ceiling of 9 large flat stones from 400 tons in total. The first 4 chambers have a flat ceiling like the King Room, while the last one has a tapered ceiling. The only textual reference in the pyramid is the sign engraved on a stone in one of these chambers, which seems to belong to a team of workers. The only object in the King's Room is a rectangular sarcophagus with a broken corner. The sarcophagus is slightly wider than the exit hall. This indicates that the sarcophagus may have been lowered from above before the roof of the room was completed. Despite the fine, master craftsmanship of the room walls, the sarcophagus shows an extremely rough workmanship, as if it were later made by others. 34. Pyramid complex. The Great Pyramid, in fact, is treated as a whole complex, with various structures around it. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the main part of the Giza buildings complex and includes a temple ruin. The temple's outer borders are 52.40 meters long from north to south and 40 meters wide from east to west. 35. Except for black basalt floors, it is completely destroyed. Remains of a road that connect the pyramid to the valley and the default, supposedly existing, valley temple. This is buried under the Kafir Salmon settlement today, if any. Giza structures complex map. The ancient Egyptian necropolis, located 20 kilometers southwest of the city of Cairo in Egypt, consists of the Cheops Pyramid, the Khephren Pyramid and the Mycerinos Pyramid and a number of additional monuments. Ruins of Cheops Temple on the southern side of the Great Pyramid. There are other pyramids of second importance, referred to as the Queen Pyramids, which are popular today. 3 of them are standing almost at their original height. The 4th has been so destroyed that even its existence has become controversial. But recently the discovery of this pyramid's stone runway and several paving stones has disseminated doubts about its existence. According to Herodotus, the pharaoh Khufu was a tyrant who even employed his daughter as a prostitute to get the income needed to build the Great Pyramid. In turn, her daughter wanted a small piece of stone from each of her customers, and her daughter thus made her own little pyramid with these stones. There is no evidence to support this story. Khufu of the Queen Pyramids. Although is said to be made for spouses, there is no definitive evidence that it was made for members of the monarch. Under the floor around the pyramid lies Khu's mother and Snefru's sister and also the tomb of Etferes, his wife. It was discovered by chance in Reisner's excavations in 1925. When the grave was found, it was evacuated by thieves. According to Reisner, Etpheres was buried near her husband's pyramid, but after a while his grave was opened by thieves, and the priests responsible for the burial did not dare to explain the disappearance of Khufu's mother's body. It was discovered by chance in Reisner's excavations. When the tomb was found, it was evacuated by thieves. According to Reisner, Etpheres was buried near her husband's pyramid, but after a while his grave was opened by thieves, and the priests responsible for the burial did not dare to explain the disappearance of Khufu's mother's body. It was discovered by chance in Reisner's excavations. When the tomb was found, it was evacuated by thieves. According to Reisner, Etpheres was buried near her husband's pyramid, but after a while his grave was opened by thieves, and the priests responsible for the burial did not dare to explain the disappearance of Khufu's mother's body. Queen Pyramids. From left to right, G1A, G1B and G1C around the pyramid are three ship-shaped cavities that are dug into the ship. It is not known for what purpose these hollows were made, except that a few strings and pieces of wood were not found. In May 1954, however, Egyptian archaeologist Kamal al-Malik discovered a fourth rectangular hollow, weighing up to 15 tons of stone slabs, weighing up to 15 tons. Haj Ahmed Yusuf was able to work together systematically for 14 years to assemble pieces of wood. There was a 143 ship made of cedar wood. It is not yet understood what this ship owes its water sealing feature. The Giza Pyramid Complex, surrounded by a wall of giant stones, consists mainly of three pyramids called cheops, Khephren and Mykerinos, accompanied by the Great Giza Sphinx. Other ruins discovered from the area include mastaba, rectangular grave where pharaohs and nobles were buried, dormitory, bakery, brewery, refectory, hospital, cemetery, and worker lodgings. 36 many buildings and complexes continue to be explored with the Giza Mapping Project. Alternative hypotheses about pyramids. Pyramid plan. The confidential information of the Great Pyramid was taken seriously by the work of French engineers during the Napoleonic Army's invasion of Egypt. When these engineers attempted to use the pyramid as a triangulation point, they noticed that all four sides were facing four major directions and that the longitudinal circle passed through the peak of the full pyramid. When the diagonal lines passing through the peak are extended to the north, the Nile, it divides the delta into two equal parts. A line to extend north from the point where the base diagonal intersects passes only 4 miles away from the North Pole, which is also possible that the pole point has been displaced in the long time since the construction of the pyramid. The unit of the metric system, today's length measure, is the meter. In other words, it is 1 in 10 million of the meridian length from pole to equator. This measure was brought up by the French shortly before the invasion of Egypt. The cubit used as the measure of the pyramid is the measure used by the ancient Egyptians and is a unit found thousands of years before the French unit. The length of a cubit is very close to 1 meter, but it is a unit more than a meter. Because this measurement was calculated not according to any meridian circumference but by the length of the pole axis. Meridian lengths can vary according to the circumference of the Earth. Some measures of the Great Pyramid taken according to the Egyptian cubit show that there is a great deal of information about the Earth, its place in the solar system, which was later forgotten and rediscovered in the modern age. This information can only be expressed in mathematics. The perimeter of the pyramid shows the number of days in a year, 365.24. Twice this circumference equals 1 minute of a longitude degree in Ecuador. The length from the base to the peak over the oblique edge is 1/100th of a parallel degree. When we divide the height of the environment doubles, pi, we find that the number of 3, 14, 16, y, these figures, he found the ancient Greek p the number, that is true than 3.1428. When the weight of the pyramid is multiplied by 10 over 15, it gives the approximate weight of the Earth. The polar axis of the world changes its direction from day to day, thus enabling a new sign to come behind the Sun every 2,200 years. It reaches its initial state only after 25,827 years. This number appears in the pyramid as 25.826.6. It is the sum of the base diagonal that gives this number. Dimensions of the Pharaoh chamber inside the Great Pyramid. 2 basic Pythagoras. The triangle is the equivalent of 3, 4, 5 and the 12th of May 13. However, the pyramid was built thousands of years before Pythagoras. These dimensions are only a small part of the pyramid's size coincidence. Only 4,000 people worked in its construction. It is known that devices such as radar do not work in the pyramids, and that archaeologists still cannot find many rooms. In recent researches, the number of workers making the pyramids is estimated to be around 10,000. New workers' graves located at the front of the pyramids, 11 cattle and 33 sheep were cut every day for workers. Multiplying the height of the Cheops pyramid by 1 billion gives approximately the distance between the Sun and our Earth. 149,504,000 kilometers. The meridian lands and seas that pass over the pyramid divided into two equal parts.